Is this the Clippers' last legit shot at a title? And one of the things that that really struck me, Harden, last year of his deal, Kawhi has gotten an extension, but it seems like with all the injuries that they have had over the last few years, combined with the playoff disappointments, we know how hard this league is. And I want to start with you, Raja. Based on what they're doing right now, I think they're fourth in the Western Conference. They have shown inklings of them figuring it out, behind the great play of Kawhi and Paul George. If you're on the Clippers right now, Raja, what is the urgency this year when you're healthy, relatively speaking? Westbrook is rehabbing and trying to get back into the fold. But if you're a veteran in that locker room, what are you telling the guys about the urgency for this team to try to go make a run and try to win a title when nothing else is promised beyond this season?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a code red level in terms of our sense of urgency to win this year for a number of reasons. You just talked about contract situations and what we look like moving forward from that regard. But let's assume everyone stays. I mean, Kawhi is an older player now who, to be fair, was injured a lot when he was younger. That usually doesn't get better as you play more basketball. Russell Westbrook, I'm a Russ stan, but we're on the back end of that, right? And so every year there's going to be a slight decline. To what percent or degree, I couldn't tell you definitively, but it's not getting better at this point. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. You couple that with the fact that this year it feels kind of wide open in a way that you might not say every year. Like, obviously there's Denver that won it last year and Boston looks great at times, but you have to look around and think that if you're in that upper echelon of teams in either conference, that provided you get some good draws and you're healthy, this is a real opportunity of a year. So when you put all of that together, if I'm one of the vets in that locker room, that's just what I'm saying to folks. Like, listen, guys, this is a year where if we can get healthy down the stretch, if we can find our stride, and we're locked in a way that someone else might not be if they're a higher seed than us or what have you, we could do this. And so for all of those reasons, let's get this done right now.
Howard, with this specific team, it has its roots to the summer of 2019. And I'm sure me and you both were in Vegas, and when it was in the stroke of the night, we're just seeing, Paul George and Kawhi are going to the Clippers. And there was this assumed notion that this will lead to multiple years of not only contention, but just titles and also a pendulum shift in Los Angeles, right? Now, the Clippers throughout the regular season over those last few years have been the better team over the Lakers and have made strides to maybe one playoff run in the bubble, if you want to say that, was legitimate to compete for a title. If they don't do it this year, what does that say for, the front office and everything that it took to get those two guys? And what will the legacy be of that night? If they, not necessarily this year, but in the next few years, if they don't win, what does that say for this team and and the ambition that they had on that night?
There's a lot that's happened in the last 5 years, obviously, since that incredible that coup. It was a coup. The Clippers, I can't emphasize this enough over the years. The Clippers had never been a destination. Ever, 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 ever. The fact that they got two of the top 15, top of wherever they were, wherever Kawhi and Paul George were at that moment in time in 2019, that is earth-shattering. That just changed the way I think everybody thought about the Clippers. And I think that endures, right? They're going into their own building for the first time in their entire Southern California history. They will have their own home starting in the fall. And they will go into it with at least Kawhi. Maybe it'll be Kawhi and Paul George and James Harden. Probably will. That would be my guess. And this is a new era, right? It started with, the shift from Sterling to Ballmer. It starts with all kinds of things. There's a lot of little things along the way too. Even the Doc Rivers era there with Lob City, with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, that group. every single piece of this has moved them forward and kind of taken them out of, the dark ages of the Clippers just being a perennial laughing stock. So I think like there's a permanent change in how we view them. They're no longer squandering their best asset, which is that they're located in LA. And that other team in LA, the one with all the banners and all the glamour, they only got 15 roster spots. So if you want to live in LA and you want all the things that come with that, there's another option now. And for decades, like the Clippers were not a realistic option. So I say 2019, no matter how this ends, right? If the season ends in the first round for them, if it's a catastrophe, if they all get hurt again, whatever it is, and they never win a championship, 2019 still mattered. Getting Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I think, still mattered. All that said, and we can come back to this, but I was ready to dismiss it, Logan, when you sent me the text about, is this it? That felt very dramatic. Is this it? Is it now or never? And then the deeper I dug in, and we can get back to it, but the more I'm starting to think, I do think this is it. Like, I do think it's kind of now or never for this group.
The reason why I asked it, and I'll do this to pose this question to Raja. The reason why I asked the question was, we know there's only a finite amount of time to win at the level that the Clippers aspire to win at, right? And there's a finite amount of time, and there are only certain players that can help you do that. If you look over the last couple of years, what happens? Kawhi Leonard, messes up his knee, right? That just erases a whole season. Then Paul George hurts his shoulder. There's so many injuries with him, right? And the overriding notion was, if this team ever gets healthy, they're the deepest team in the league. They're coached by one of the best coaches in the league in Ty Lue. But we also know when you get to this point, how hard it is to sustain. And me and Roger talk about this all the time. When you have a chance to go win, you have to do it. And at the fourth seed, when you have an aging core in the way that they do, playing healthy and as well as they played in certain times, right? I was watching this team against Houston last week and just how good that they can be in spurts. But none of this is promised, right, Raja? Like, none of this can end up happening. And if you look at their next year, for instance, right? They're another year older. Kawhi, it's another chance for Kawhi or Paul George to get injured in that way. We know James Harden doesn't have that many more years left. This is the chance for them to, and the way that they've been playing this season, it's finally a chance for them to actually make do on the promise that they made a few years ago. And even that isn't promised because the two guys that they're relying on are injury prone. The third guy that they're relying on doesn't really play well in the playoffs when it matters the most in James Harden. And then that just makes the urgency all the more palpable, right, Raja?
There are a lot of things that point to this being the year that they need to get this done, right? And just generally speaking, windows don't stay open forever. You've got a core, whether circumstances in the past, haven't allowed you to really capitalize on everything that you've got there or not. That's besides the point. Like, your window is rapidly shutting, and you did, like, I didn't say Paul George, but another one that's injured a lot like that. Those things don't get better when you have guys that are just on the other side of their prime or maybe still in their prime to a degree. The urgency, it is now. Like, it's a now thing because you just typically don't get healthier while you're playing the same amount of minutes and carrying the same sort of load, if that makes sense. You're not going to, your skill sets like Russ's and James Harden, once they peaked and they plateaued for a while and they've been at the highest level, they don't have a resurgence and then just get better at the tail end of their career. That rarely, if ever, happens. And so you got to go out there and win. And I would just add one more thing to it. As great as Ty Lue is, and I believe Ty Lue is fantastic. I've said this before. But I also, in fairness, talk about like messaging, and when you're really close to winning, but you just don't get over the hump. Like, at some point, the messaging becomes like stale. And I do think certain coaches have a way about them that keeps it fresh for longer than others can, and I think Ty Lue falls into that category. But that's just another piece of that puzzle, of why we would want to get this thing taken care of this year. And so, again, I think if I'm a vet in that locker room, I'm trying not to make it a pressure cooker of a situation for some of the guys that might not be at the same point in their career as I am. I don't want to add any additional pressure, but I certainly want us to understand that we're fully capable of this, and this is, of all the years, an excellent opportunity for us to really put our best foot forward and win a championship, because it's really, it's really right there. And I said it before, like, if you look around, we do this a lot. Guys might not want to admit to it, like when they're talking about who you want to draw in the first round and, oh, we don't care, we just want to play. That's bullshit. People are looking around all the time. People are looking around all the time saying, man, we ain't worried about that. It happens all the time. And so as it pertains to them this year, if you're looking around, there may be teams they don't want to see, but I think big picture, they're looking around saying this could be had.